that down. Let's move on to this, shall we? You know, it is now known, public knowledge, 5-6 years after announcing that Marvel was getting X-Men back, we've got a director, Jake Schreier, the guy who masterfully directed Thunderbolts. Did such a great job on that. By the way, did a really good job with his directing parts in Skeleton Crew as well. I thought that was really good what he did there. He's the director of the new X-Men film. They're already hard at work planning, and he's already talking about it a little bit. And while on the surface what he says seems pretty innocuous, it gets me thinking a lot about where they might be going. This article comes to us from Deadline. All right, Jake Schreier teases X-Men reboot. It's just inherently interesting and complex material. Jake Schreier is set to direct X-Men the reboot, and in a new interview teased the film in the works. Marvel boss Kevin Feige confirmed that Schreier would helm the film, and although the filmmaker can't give too many details on the movie, he did discuss the comic book superheroes. He said, "Without going into too much, really almost any detail," he told the playlist, "what I can say is it's just inherently interesting and complex material." Schreier noted that the core idea of what X-Men is involves complexity, adding, "It's an incredible opportunity with super interesting characters and much internal conflict. These characters are wrestling with their identity and place in the world, and that's inherently interesting and complex material." All right. Couple of things that I did pull out of that, which is the core idea about the story of X-Men is the mutants are inherently at war with each other while all trying to figure out their place in the world. You have, of course, as Stan Lee put it, you have your Malcolm X and Martin Luther King figureheads with Charles Xavier and Magneto, who they're opposing polar opposite points of view of how mutants fit into the world. One is coexisting and living alongside. The other is kill or be killed, where we either dominate them or they're going to oppress us. Meanwhile, the X-Men, trying to fight that philosophy, are having to fight with the fact that Magneto is partially right because humanity is constantly trying to crap on them.
Yes.
In many different ways. Of course, the analogies are full in there. It was masterfully done comic. It's a great told story. So it sounds like, Rob, that core essential element of at war with the world while at war with each other and trying to figure out their place and how they fit into the world. I think that's got to be a key thing. That's got to be almost like your prime directive, if you will, when it comes to storytelling.
Yeah. 100%.
That 100% needs to be there. In hearing his words and talking about the complexity of the characters, finding their place in the world, the internal conflict, stuff like that, where do you see them going with this first X-Men film? I mean, obviously it's a Fantastic Four situation. The mutants and the X-Men don't exist in the sacred timeline and the sacred universe or whatever of the dozen versions of multiverse Marvel's been talking about. Hearing these words now, to give it a little bit more context, how do you see this going?
Well, I'm fascinated by this whole idea. You know, the X-Men to me are the comic book equivalent of Star Trek for me in terms of what I love. I love the X-Men. And what I find interesting is if they follow what happened at the end of Hickman's Secret Wars and they do go to Battle World in Avengers Secret Wars, and then the world is remade at the end of that, the timelines are collapsed, you now have an opportunity where you could literally kind of do what they did with the Fox X-Men universe. You know, they went back all the way to the early 60s for X-Men First Class. You could do a version of that where the X-Men are introduced, Xavier's school, whatever. You could introduce them in the 60s, you could introduce them in the 70s. The 70s in this new version of the MCU, all of the characters don't have to exist at the same time as the Avengers that we know. So you could you could actually use the X-Men as a vehicle to restart the MCU from a whole different perspective, which makes everything old new again. Where you could do 3 or 4 X-Men movies before Captain America is even unfrozen, you know, and then you that way you could bring back Xavier and Magneto, and you could show their conflict in the 60s and 70s and have Magneto still be a refugee from, or a former, he could have come from a concentration camp. You could have had an Xavier that's younger. And then you've got, there's such a huge pantheon of X-Men characters that they can come and go. younger X-Men would lead in, become the New Mutants, and you could build this whole, and Cyclops could age. So you could do 50 years of mutant history through all of these mutant movies. Like, you could end up doing 6 X-Men movies and introduce all, like, Wolverine could start back in the 1800s. You could do all these things. It opens up, what it does is it reboots the Marvel Universe and make it mutant-centric. And then you lead up. You can have all these new characters you've never seen before, all these X-Men we've never seen depicted on screen, both the Hellfire Club. Go back to the 1800s with the Hellfire Club. There's so much you could do, and lead all the way into the modern Avengers. So they would come way after the X-Men. And I think that the possibilities, depending on what they want to do, are endless. Because I really like, for all the guff that X-Men Origins Wolverine gets, the first half an hour where you see his history living through the many wars that he's lived through with his brother and Sabretooth.
Oh, I'll go more than the first half hour. I thought the first half of the movie overall, I thought was pretty good.
Pretty cool.
And it kind of lost its way a bit.
Yeah, but I think that opening, and then between that history and what they did in First Class and doing, I hope they do a Hellfire movie. The Hellfire Club. Who wouldn't go see that? And you've got the whole...
I think the better question is, who would go see that?
Dude, it'd be dope.
It's a narrow demographic. For you say a Hellfire Club movie, it's about 3% of the movie-going population that will even have any idea of what we're talking about.
Right, but you have to build into all that.
Sure,
You have to explain.
Yes.
Although I think you get a lot of people to go see the Hellfire Gala movie. But I don't think that should be a movie. That should be an event that takes place.
No, it should be a YouTube video. Or,
well, what happened at the end of the Hickman era of X-Men at the Hellfire, that was one of the great modern comics I've read. The destruction of the X-Men at the end of the Hickman Krakoan era was awesome. Orcus, they did their job.
And that's what led into the trial of Cyclops, of Scott Summers, right?
Well, not the new one, the one that just happened.
Right.
Oh,
yeah, didn't that then lead
it
into
might
the
have.
trial
I
of Scott
quit
Summers?
after I quit. After that new reboot of the X-Men, I'm out.
It's a lot of different ways they can go. I mean, listen, and this, of course, a lot of people who are familiar with the comics salivate at the idea of a Avengers versus X-Men thing. I don't think we're getting that in Doomsday or in Secret Wars. I don't think that part, and they could, like, what we've seen with all the Marvel iterations so far is that they've taken, when they've done a movie, they've taken story ideas and plot lines from multiple comic storylines and brought them into one thing. So they could do Doomsday and Secret Wars and implement, pieces of fabric of the X-Men versus Avengers storyline. Or it could be something that they build up to a little bit later on.
I think, look, I will pay double if there's a scene in Doomsday where the X-Men fight the Avengers. Because the Avengers don't know who the X-Men are, and the X-Men don't know who the Avengers are because they're on different Earths.
Right.
I'm telling you.
But that's a scene. I'm talking about like a movie.
But it's going to be, I want to see an extended, knocked out, look, the beginning of Days of Future Past.
So basically, you want like a Civil War airport scene, but with X-Men and Avengers.
Dude, I would give up a year of my life to see that executed properly. I mean, especially because we still get, but you know what? Hugh Jackman's got to come back. They haven't announced he's coming back, but they got to have him come back. You've got to bring back the pantheon of all the Fox X-Men, as many as you can, and have, because we've seen those set photos of Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters wiped out. I want it. Give it to me. Give it to me.
Yeah,
I want it back.
I still don't think Hugh Jackman's coming back. I still don't think he is. I mean, I don't know that he isn't. I'm not. He very well could. I'm just saying. If I had to bet $5, I'm still betting that he's not coming
because
back.
That opening scene in Days of Future Past where you saw the Sentinels,
and when he walks out of the Blackbird lands and Storm comes out and Wolverine comes walking down, like that was.
And I want Xavier in his floating yellow chair. I don't want him in a wheelchair. I want him in the floating.
You want him like he was in Doctor Strange.
But I want to see that chair. I want it to be the Aston Martin DB5 of Xavier's chairs. I want to see him wreck shop in that thing, flying around. I can't wait. I want to see a fastball special. I can't wait, dude. I'm so excited. Probably isn't going to happen.
Anyway, guys, question is for you. The director of X-Men now given some insight about his whole philosophy when it comes to it. Does that color for you or fill in any of the gaps for you about your theories about where they might go with X-Men? What are you hoping to see? Anyway, whatever you guys think about all that, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.